Hi guys, how you doing? Are you looking for a great ITX case with a silly name? Well, we've got that for you today. So the case in question is the Meshlicious from a company called Ssupd or something like that. They're new on the block, and if this is anything to go by, there's going to be great things coming in the future. I've been using the case for about 2 weeks now, really impressed. I did have my concerns, but you know, I needn't have worried. Now the case is a tower case, and they've definitely become more popular. You know, they've got the Phanteks Evolve Shift, you've got the NZXT H1, and there are others as well, Silverstone. They've got their own kind of versions of this kind of case. And you know, it fits full-size components. I've got the RX 6800, which is a triple fan card, you know, dual slot. I've got a 240mm AIO, and yeah, there's loads of room. It fits an ATX power supply, and you know, you can do so much with it, so much customization, and that's one thing that's refreshing really, because you can fit a 4-slot GPU, not that you've probably got one, and you know, like I said, the ATX power supply. You can get SFX, you can put hard drives in there, but there are some compromises. I'm not going to kind of say you can fit everything in there, because you can't really. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the case before I did the build. I'm going to have a look at the ins and outs of it. It's very interesting. I really enjoyed building in it, although there were a couple of challenges here and there, but you know, we'll kind of cover that later on. We're going to do the build, and then I'm going to look at the case in 6 different categories. We'll talk a little bit more about it, and then you can see if it's a case that you want to buy. Let's do it. Guys, I cannot stress how important it is, but at this point, you have got to change your BIOS to 3.0 or PCI 3 or whatever it is, because if you don't, like me, you're going to have to undo everything to change it. So if you're using the PCI 3rd gen riser with a PCI 4.0 card like the RX 6800, change it to Gen 3 or you will be crying. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about the case in 6 different categories, and the first up is build quality. Now the case is absolutely fantastic. You know, I think it's really strong, really rugged. You're not going to have any problems with, you know, your parts moving around or not fitting in properly. The only issue I really kind of found was the top panel. There's 2 bits of metal. There's actually the frame, which pops onto the actual frame, and then there's the kind of the mesh, the metal mesh which goes around it. It didn't kind of sit flush. It kind of wanted to kind of do its own thing. Whether there's a way I can fix that, kind of trying to bend it round. I did have a little play, and I kind of had very limited success with that. You might be fine. So overall, I think it's really good. I'm going to give it 4 stars. So from a design point of view, I think they've done a fantastic job. You know, the amount of customization and options you have is great. You know, so you can have a horizontal GPU, you know, an ITX one. You will need a PCI riser cable that's slightly longer than the one you get in the box, so it's a little bit frustrating, but it's just kind of the way things are. Most people are going to be using vertical GPU like I've done. Access to the ports is really good. You get a right-angled HDMI cable in the box, which is good. You can also obviously buy adapters if you can use DisplayPort. So you know, it's an additional cost, but you know, it's fine. A couple of niggles really. Placement of the SSDs is not fantastic. You're down the bottom of the case. You can put one, I think, just behind the power supply as well. Although I tried to do that and it was really fiddly, and just I gave up. Also, the feet aren't very big. You know, there's little pads. You know, 2-3 mil thick. I think you can 3D print some more feet, so obviously that's something you might want to do, but you haven't got a fan down the bottom or anything like that, so I haven't got an issue with it, but you know, some people might kind of point it out. The case also supports 4-slot graphics cards, which is just, yeah, amazing. Not that I can really think of one that's 4 slots. I think triple slot is really kind of where things are at the moment. But you will kind of lose a little bit of room when it comes to an air cooler, but you know, I think most people aren't going to be using a 4-slot graphics card or an air cooler in this case. You know, there will be people, but you know, for the most part, like me, a vertical, you know, dual or triple slot graphics card, an AIO, and you know, it's what it's geared up for, you know, from my point of view. So overall, they've done a fantastic job. You know, you can't really ask for more than what they've done, and yeah, for that reason, I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. So the core support for this case is fantastic. Now, I don't think you're going to be using an air cooler in it. You know, you could prove me wrong. That's absolutely fine. Depending on kind of how you use the case, whether you want a 4-slot GPU, would depend on kind of how much room you have for an air cooler. I, like probably most people, are going to be using an AIO. 240 in there at the moment. However, you can go up to 280. My experience with a 280 is that it's great in theory, but actually kind of getting it into a small cramped space, it's kind of, sometimes it's not always worth the kind of the extra effort you have to go through. Also, when you talk about effort and kind of putting the cooler in, I did have to kind of adjust the bar on the side there. I tried to put it in without it and without moving it. I didn't realise you could actually move up and down. And then yeah, just one of those things really that you kind of come across when you're building and you're not kind of really planning ahead. So you know, you adjust the bar on the side if you're using a 280mm AIO or 120 fans or whatever. So from a cooler support, I think it's really good. It could be better because the problem which I found was the tubes weren't that kind of well routed. You can have, I've got it upside down, so the tubes are at the bottom. If you have them at the top, you might have a slightly better experience, but there is a bar which you need to remove, put the tubes through, and then put the bar back in place. So it's good. It could be better. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. So the GPU support in this case is absolutely fantastic. If you've got an ITX card and you want to use it horizontally, then 211mm is the maximum you can go to. You will lose the ability to use an AIO though, so it's probably not worth the trade-off, but obviously that's for you to decide. Most people are going to be using it in a vertical orientation. That's what I've done, and there you can, you know, triple slot is the default. You can go up to 4 slots, which is just ridiculous. You will lose a little bit of room for an air cooler, or if you decide to go that route, but there is obviously the option to move it along. Most people won't bother with that. I don't think you'll be looking at a case of this size with a card that's that ginormous, but you know, it's there. It's definitely different, so so well done guys for that. If you go for a vertical GPU, then you've got 336mm to work with. I've got the reference RX 6800. and it's really good, to be honest. I did have some concerns over temperatures, because it really needs assistance from airflow, because in my 4000D the temperatures were a little bit warm at times, but I needn't have worried. And the air comes out the top of the cards, and it kind of gets pushed out from the AIO. And I'm going to share some temperatures now with you. And yeah, just really good, really impressed. It exceeded my expectations. So from a GPU support, also from a cooling point of view, from the way I had it set up, that is, absolutely excellent. I'm going to give it 5 stars because it deserves it. So the cable management for this case was all right. You know, I didn't have too many problems. There were tie down points around the case, and you know, that can only help. I haven't done a fantastic job with the cable management, let's put it that way. Sometimes I've moved it, I've then put it down, and I've got the tat 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 where cables kind of hit a fan, and it's great. Now I have an SFX power supply, and you know, I didn't have any problems with cables, you know, the custom sleeves. However, if you have a non-modular ATX power supply, you're not going to have fun. If you have a semi-modular power supply, you're probably not going to have fun. But if you've got an ATX power supply with custom cables, and maybe like the Strix 850 or 750 or whatever that I've done recently, I did a video on that, then I think, you know, it's going to be a lot easier to manage those cables, because there isn't a great deal of room, and you kind of want to make your life easier. That's really what you want to do, isn't it? So my recommendation would be using SFX or SFXL, possible obviously to get away with with a larger one, but is it worth the kind of hassle? That's for you to decide, really. So from a cable management point of view, I think it's fairly straightforward, but just choose your power supply wisely, really. You know, obviously some people have only got a power supply, they can't kind of go out and buy a new one, so yeah, you might struggle. So overall, I think I'm going to give it 4 stars because it's not too bad. So the last case we're going to look at is value. Now I paid £120 for this case, and I probably paid a little bit too much, really, in the sense that I've seen it go for £100, and I've seen it go all up to, I think, probably 120, 125. And that's for the Gen 3. The Gen 4 isn't out just yet. They're taking back orders from, I think, Overclockers, I think I saw it in there, and that's about 160. I'll put a little catch up on the screen if that's wrong. Now, if you want Gen 3 or don't really care about Gen 4, then I think definitely go for the Gen 3 version, because it's available now, and you know, it's cheaper. Whereas, you know, obviously you're going to be spending a little bit more for you know, that better cable. But you know, if you want future proof and you can wait until it comes out, then do that. So overall, I think from the design, you know, the quirkiness, the build quality, it's just a fantastic case. Now, is it as good as the NR200p from Cooler Master, which is my favourite ITX case? It's a close second. I think it's a close second. So I mean, for value, I think it's probably about 4 stars. Guys, so overall, I think this is a brilliant case. It offers great value for money. The customization is fantastic. So if you're looking for a case that's, you know, fun, then this is definitely something for you. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.